Well, this is the last tranche of the Fair Work Act changes that they proposed before the election. So this policy announcements flow out of a platform that was released in May last year, 2013. Now they're finally getting around to introducing them into this session of Parliament before Christmas. So there are two main changes in relation to productivity. Basically, they're trying to put a test around productivity, around ensuring that employers and unions discuss productivity when they are in bargaining, and also they're trying to curb supposedly excessive wage claims by stronger unions.
Okay, so if they're claiming that excessive wage hikes are hurting the economy, how much of a problem is this really? I mean, are there examples of things spiralling out of control?
Well, at the moment, you've seen figures this week which shows wages growth at its slowest perhaps for 25 years. Labour costs are quite low. The issue here is that this policy was devised 18 months ago and released then. It was devised on the back of employee complaints in the maritime and construction sector, which said industrially strong unions were using their muscle to get exorbitant pay rises out of employers without any productivity offsets. There were examples with the MUA and the CFMU where they got big pay rises, where they boasted subsequently that there was no productivity offsets. The government responded to those complaints from employers and put those into their policy. They were obviously the opposition at the time, and now they've come into play and now they've put it into Parliament.
So they're arguing there's a few bad eggs out there that are spoiling it for everybody else.
Well, at the moment they're saying that, but I think wages pressure is tempered substantially, and so this is about addressing some of those breakout issues which have occurred, but there's no real evidence that they've occurred lately. But obviously, who's to say that they won't occur again? Those unions remain quite strong in different pockets of the economy, so this could occur, and so this is really the coalition saying they want to sort of wind back the influence of those unions. Really, it's an attack on the industrial strength of those unions in particular.
Now, unions generally react to this kind of movement by claiming that it's a witch hunt and it's unfair. I mean, how significant of a blow would this be to their bargaining power?
Well, it's going to impact their bargaining power and by extension increase the bargaining power of certain employers. The question is, will it get through the Senate? The government's introducing these changes before it's even got its first changes through the Parliament. You have a hostile Senate and they are not haven't passed those amendments yet, so we've still got to see whether they're actually going to get them through.
But it sounds to me like they're not really asking for anything too unreasonable here. I mean, it's not an automatic veto, right? You just basically have to discuss productivity.
Well, that's right. You're discussing productivity. You're going to consider productivity. So who's to say that the unions and employers won't say, sure, we've discussed productivity, everything's fine, we've done all we can. If unions and employers say we can't do any more, that will be okay as well. So really, there's a discretion for the Commission. It's supposedly about getting productivity on the agenda, making it some sort of requirement, but it's a pretty loose requirement. And there won't be a veto power, as you suggest. I don't think the government actually trusts the Commission enough to give it a veto power. Employers don't want a veto power, so at the end it's a question of how effective it will be.
And just finally on that, the changes to the laws around protests and stop work, yeah. I mean, would that have impacted any of the, famous cases, the protests, for example, in Melbourne around the Grocon site? Would that have come up in those situations?
No, I don't think so. This really relates to wage deals struck in the offshore area and also in construction, where now the Commission is going to have to decide whether a claim is manifestly excessive, are the wording to be used. Now the government will use examples where the MUA have secured a 29% or 30% pay increase in the past, something they haven't achieved lately. They will use an example where the CFMEU has secured a 5% or 6% pay increase annually without any productivity offsets. It will be up to the Commission to decide whether that's manifestly excessive. They've also changed the wording of the pre-election policy to talk about the impact on productivity. They're now saying whether it has a significant impact, adverse impact on productivity, not just an adverse impact. So they've weakened that part of it as well.
Are you aware of examples of protests that have that would be affected by this? I mean, is this actually a real problem that they're tackling?
Well, they're talking about perhaps making it harder for raising the bar slightly for unions to be able to take legal industrial action. Mm-hmm. At the moment, we haven't got massive outbreaks of strikes. So it's going to be interesting to see where this comes into play. I suggest it'll come into play where there are industrially stronger unions who are traditionally about using their bargaining power to exert pressure on companies. But there'll only be rare examples of it, I think.
One to watch. Ewin Hannan, thanks very much.
Thank you.